Cenk, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
So Cenk, the spirit of inviting you is that there's some confusion of these divides of right versus left, populist versus corporatist. I guess a good opening would be, as a man in the progressive movement, as one of the leaders of the progressive movement, what do you make of this last year, the state of the Democrat Party, and kind of American politics from the more progressive left perspective?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm proud to represent the left flank of the populist movement, and I think we need both flanks, so I'm happy to have this conversation. In terms of what has gone wrong in the Democratic Party, it's the same thing that went wrong in the Republican Party, but I do have to give you guys credit for a revolution well done. And what I mean by that is not a revolution against the Democratic Party or the left or the country, but a revolution against the establishment. So I knew you guys were for real in fighting against the establishment when I started going on right-wing shows and I would say something negative about Mitch McConnell. And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do that here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
All right.
Just a test.
Yes, I love that. So look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there, they just booed Mitch McConnell. That's a great thing, okay? And let's do one more. What do you guys think about Dick Cheney? My left-wing friends out there, we have been waiting for the right-wing populists to boo Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney our whole lives. Take the win. Take the win. Now, what we need to do in the Democratic Party is we need to do likewise. We need to have a revolt against the Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's. And the Hillary Clintons, and now all of a sudden the Dick Cheneys. What are they doing on our side? Are you guys nuts? Right?
I have to interject. When all of a sudden Kamala Harris is doing the Liz Cheney thing, I said, does she want to lose? I mean,
what's amazing is I said the same thing. Look, Dick Cheney polls at 13%. What lunatic thought it was a good idea to wrap yourself around Dick Cheney? I mean, when we started the Young Turks 22 years ago, longest running show in internet history, first ever YouTube partner with original YouTubers, one of the driving forces was get Dick Cheney out of office, right? And now for Kamala Harris to come full circle and say, oh, I've got 90 corporate CEOs backing me, and I've got all these executives on my side, and I've got Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney on my side, it was so counterproductive. It's not what the left wing stands for. It's not what the Democratic Party should be about. So the problem is the establishment. They are controlled by the donor class, and mainstream media is their marketing arm. They do not do news. They do propaganda. And one more thing. What I want you guys to recognize is that mainstream media, you think, is against you. You think they're against the right wing. But they also hate Bernie Sanders. And they also hate me. And they also hate the populists on the left. What mainstream media really loves is the establishment and the elites. They're against all of us combined. And if we dare unite on issues we agree on, they will be livid, and it'll be a beautiful day in America.
And that is correct. I mean, you were kicked off of some of the cable news channels for having heterodox opinions on certain issues. So let's kind of look at the last couple of years. We can go back to the Bernie Sanders thing. Explain to us, why is it that right-wing revolution was successful, and the Bernie Sanders with 2 attempts actually won the primary in 2016, and he had it stolen. Again, stolen election talk can be a little controversial. They stole it from Bernie Sanders in 2016. Why was that revolution not successful?
Yeah, I think it was because Donald Trump was a celebrity and they didn't take him seriously, so they made the mistake of giving him mainstream media coverage. And so they thought, and if you remember, Bill Clinton had this brilliant idea, we'll encourage Donald Trump to run on the Republican side and it'll destroy the Republican Party. How'd that work out for you, Bill? And so I remember saying at the time, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because what I sensed was you need a non-politician to lead the revolt. So, because all the politicians, and right now they're having a conversation on the Democratic side about 2028, and the only people they mention are politicians. And my answer to that is hell no. Okay? Because the politicians are used to the corruption. They grew up in the corruption. They like the corruption. They got their power through the corruption. So I don't want that. I don't need that. And so when Trump came on, they gave him coverage. And here's when look, some people think that things changed after the election. No, I've been saying this from day one. Correct. And so back in 2016, actually 2015, after I think it was the second debate, when Trump was on stage and he said, I gave all these guys money and they did exactly what I wanted. At that point, everyone on earth, certainly in establishment and mainstream media, says he has no chance of winning, none. I went on the Young Turks and I said, he's going to win the Republican primary. Okay? Because people hate corruption and they know it in their bones. Okay? Now, we will disagree on, is Trump really not corrupt? Is Trump really going to do the things that he promised? Is he really a populist? I would love to prove me wrong. I would love that, okay? And my God, if Trump got money out of politics, one thing we're known for is credit where credit is due, okay? I would give him all the credit in the world. We're not there yet. We're not close to there yet. So when we get into the issues, hey, how about, and remember, guys, you also have donors. Beware of the donors. Don't forget that, and don't let your guard down, okay? But so on the Democratic side, we have got to elect a populist. If we don't, we're going to make the same mistake we made when they anointed Hillary Clinton, when they anointed Joe Biden, and when they anointed Kamala Harris. To my Democratic friends, how many times are you going to lose before you realize that mainstream media and the establishment are lying to you?
And so is that energy forefront in the Democrat Party right now? And I'm not saying this facetiously. Read us into what the power brokers of the Democrat Party are saying. Are they saying we need to run more to the middle, that we need to embrace more populism? We're hearing some of the names, but what is the vibe of the people that do this for a living?
Yeah, so I can tell you definitively that the Democratic leadership and the Democratic establishment will never voluntarily go in a new direction. They will never voluntarily accept populism. They are built on donor money. They are of the donors, by the donors, for the donors. So what I need left-wing voters to understand is that they're never going to give you what you want incrementally. Martin Luther King talked about the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Oh, if we just go a little further with Joe Biden, he'll give us another crumble and another tiny increment. No, they're going to just pick a new and improved corporate robot like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom, and they're going to come out with a new script, and they're going to say, I am now a populist, and they will wear flannel shirts, and they'll go to barbecues, and they'll pretend to eat ribs, and then they'll sneak out and go to French Laundry, right? So don't believe the corporate robots. Remember how many times they lied to you. We need to do a populist revolt and pick a populist left-winger so we could have a real contest in this country. The establishment Democrats are never going to win. We need to go populist, and the way to do that is not by negotiating with them, it's by defeating them in a primary.
Is the Democrat grassroots, are they invigorated towards that end? Because it seemed as if they weren't obviously thrilled about Biden or Kamala Harris, but you could say whatever you want about Bernie Sanders. I have massive worldview disagreements. He had a legitimate grassroots movement behind him of small dollar donors, of people that were working, of activists. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like that has disappeared a little bit in recent years, or at least has gone to sleep. Am I correct in that? And what would it take to awaken that sleeping giant?
So there's a couple of different branches within the Democratic Party and the left, but the two most important ones are the populist progressive left, that's Bernie Sanders, and we can debate about progressive issues and policies on another day, right? But then there's the establishment wing. So the populist wing is already there. That base that was there in 2016 and 2020 still exists. And remember, guys, and I say this to you and I say it to the left wing, Bernie won the first 3 states in 2020. He was this close to winning until Obama and Clyburn called in all the candidates.
He's right.
And said, you all have to bow to Joe Biden. And then mainstream media then said, Joe Biden is the greatest. And they started talking about how Bernie Sanders, the most successful Jewish candidate in American history, had followers who were brown shirts and fascists and Nazis. Where have you heard that before? So whenever it's an outsider, all of a sudden mainstream media says fascist, even if it's a Jewish candidate, right? So they use the same tricks. And you guys have been canceled, I've been canceled. They do the same thing to both of us over and over again. So the left-wing populists are ready, but we do need some more votes from people who used to be in the establishment Democratic camp. And why were they in that camp? Because they love corruption, they love war, they love change? No, guys. They were in that camp because mainstream media lied to them. And mainstream media told them, oh, Bernie can't win. Bernie was up by 12 points on Election Day in 2016. They said, he's radical. And they called you guys radical and said you couldn't win. They call us radical and say we can't win. But they're wrong. They're lying. So what I need Democrats to understand is stop believing in Morning Joe and The View and all the garbage on TV.
So that's a really good point about the media ecosystem. You guys are, without a doubt, the most popular, progressive, over-the-top, non-mainstream media sanctioned community. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 27 million subscribers, 30 billion views. I think it's fair to say.
No, I'm not saying that sarcastically. I don't know of anyone that comes close. However, do you think there's a robust alternative media ecosystem on the left that is comparable to what's built on the right? I could say confidently what we have on the right is pretty impressive. We have from podcasting to videos. We don't rely on cable television. Who here listens to podcasts or social media for all your news? Raise your hand. I mean, every single hand goes up. So do you think the left has some work to do in developing over-the-top media to be able to bypass the main networks?
Yeah, so we have TYT as a giant network, but we have a lot of great progressive and populist shows that are not part of TYT that's in the left-wing ecosystem. So I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think that there isn't enough shows. I think that there's a couple others. One, on the right, you guys do a great job of coalescing. Okay, so you do a couple of things well. You work together well, and you're more welcoming, if I'm being honest.
We're glad Cenk's here, right, everybody?
And a lot of people on the left know this as well. If you agree with MAGA 5%, the answer you get is welcome, right? Come join us, right? On the left, if you disagree 5%, they go, get out of here, you're a right-winger, you're a fascist, right? But if you push enough people out and you guys welcome enough people in, eventually you win the popular vote. That's what I warned them about, and that's what happened, right? So, look, I propose simple rules, the 3 rules of the internet. Rule number 1, when we disagree, we fight. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Now, rule number 2 is afterwards we must have a beer together, okay? And rule number 3 is, for God's sake, when we agree, let's unite. So, for the left, we have too much division. We almost never unify. I don't mean with the right, I mean internally. The left loves to attack one another. I love you guys on the left, I love you. But every once in a while, when we get a yes, when we agree, can we please unite? And the second thing we need is for the old, I'm being honest, and on average, not everyone, of course, but for the older Democratic voters, please turn off your television sets. They're lying to you, they're tricking you, they're trying to get you to vote for corruption, they're trying to get you to vote for policies you don't even want. So if we can do those 2 things, then we'll be in great shape.
So I'm not sure how you'll feel about this, but there is a consensus, not a consensus, there is a belief with some people like Seth Moulton and others that some of the embrace of what we would call wokeism or whatever was a reason why Democrats had a less than desirable election outcome. Do you subscribe to that belief? How do you interpret that when some people say we need to kind of shed away some of the more new elements of the cultural implications of politics outside of economics, like the Seth Moulton belief that where he says the trans stuff hurt us?
Yeah, so look, guys, on that stuff, I've been having these debates internally with the left wing. And I explained yesterday, actually, on the Young Turks. Look, everybody's positions are in a different part of the left-right spectrum and on different policies. So I can name you policies where you say, well, that's pretty moderate, right? I can name you policies that you're not sure is left or right-wing, but that is definitely populist, right? But some of my policies might be called extreme left in America. So, for example, I'm massively in favor of gun control. You told them not to boo, but I knew they'd boo on that one.
They paused to their
Yes.
their respect. You were asking for it, Cenk.
Yeah, I did ask for it. So my point to my left-wing allies is, am I going to emphasize and insist and demand on my gun control policies when we're in the middle of a national election? No. Because I know those are not winning issues at this point. I've got more work to do to convince the American people before we get there. So if on trans issues or any other, or crime issues, et cetera, if you really believe in the most far left positions, as I do on gun control, for example, that's okay. But you've got to know what to emphasize and what not to emphasize. And so if you say, no, I'm going to die on every extreme hill, well, you will. Electorally, politically, you will die on that hill. And then you lose on all of your issues, because it's sometimes a binary game. Certainly elections are. So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
So, no, I know. So guys, look at that. We totally disagree on that issue, but we just...
You were asking for that one, I'm sorry.
No problem. No, but look, but that was an important moment, because we totally disagree on that issue, but we just shook hands anyway. And you know what we'll do afterwards? We'll have a beer. So, you know what it is when you disagree on something and then you fight about it and then you have a beer afterwards? That's called America. So let me see if I can get agreement, and this I don't know which way this is going to go, okay? So when we talk about trans issues in terms of sports, I know we have massive disagreements, okay? And on one of those issues, professional sports, I agree with you guys. On high school sports, I don't. We'll go get into a bloody battle on that, okay? But I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, health care, and housing? Constitutional rights.
Do you want me to translate? Well, there is no constitutional right to housing.
Okay, so I hear you. What I got out of that, guys...
I'm just trying to be the interpreter.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of applause and there was some consternation, right? I'll take it. It's a start. So, guys, when we can even disagree about what's constitutional, Second Amendment, housing, etc. But just let's treat everyone as Americans. And I say that to the right and I say it to the left.
For sure. So we're going to go a little overtime because I know the boss here. And there's two things. I want to ask about free speech, and then I want to try to say, can we get one or two action items that this community can get behind in this new Congress and this presidency that are populist that maybe we can push for and advocate for? Now, I want to try to maybe see if we could brainstorm that together. Number one, first on free speech. do you think that the left, and you are an exception, is ready to embrace a robust, spirited culture of freedom of speech where disagreement is welcome, where you're able to have these kind of dialogues and forums? And I think it's a tragedy, it seems to be, that more the right is willing to do it. Prove me wrong if that really is the case.
Yeah, I'm trying to remind the left of who we are, because the left is supposed to be for freedom of speech. The left needs freedom. If you're gay or you're trans or you're Muslim or you're someone that was otherized at some point in your life, you need freedom more than anyone else does. You need equality more than anyone else does. You need justice more than anyone else does. So if you want those things, you've got to reciprocate. So you've got to not, I want you guys to not assume that we hate you or that we're evil or that we're bad. But if we're going to do that, the left wing has to do the same. They have to assume that you're not evil, that you don't hate them, and you're not all of these things. So I know from time to time we'll still get back into the battles and we'll still call each other names, right? But overall, if we can begin to not hate each other, and so when we disagree, let's try two more real quick here. Okay. When we disagree, can we agree to not hate each other? All right, excellent. And when we have these fights, to Charlie's point, can we, for the first time in my lifetime, begin to actually listen to one another? And Charlie, I'll give you credit on this, because one of the turning points, if you will, in how I started to view the right wing is when you came on the Young Turks at the RNC, and we started talking about banning private equity from buying residential real estate. Which
I totally agree with. That the young people in this audience should not have to compete against BlackRock to be able to own a home. Do you guys agree?
So we've got a populist plank on tyt.com that's one of the 6 pillars, right? And all my life, I go on Republican shows, I go on right-wing shows. When I say something against the bankers, they're like, no, the bankers are great, the bankers are great. Oh, I was so frustrated. And now, all of a sudden, we got the right-wing populists saying, let's ban the bankers from buying our homes so they don't drive up the prices. Yes, yes. The left, take yes for an answer. Take yes for an answer. And look, what I said online on X was, at least what we got out of this election is we're no longer in an establishment prison. Now we're in the populist woods, right? And if you say, yeah, but we're going to fight in the populist woods, yes, but at least we're all human out here. We defeated the corporate robots, and we've got more fights with the corporate robots to come. But out here in the woods, when I see you guys, I don't hate you anymore. Right? I see my fellow Americans. And so in these populist woods, we'll sometimes have skirmishes, sometimes we'll have battles. But the main thing I'm trying to drive with the 6 points of the populist plank: higher wages for Americans, time off for moms after they have a baby, anti-corruption,
totally agree with
anti-war. The reason
audit the Pentagon.
Oh, yes. So the reason I pick those is not because they're the most left-wing positions, because those are the positions we all agree on, right? And God help the establishment if we actually work together to do those things. And finally, to the heart of your question, Charlie, I proposed on X, cut the Pentagon. Yes. Make sure the generals cannot work for the military-industrial complex afterwards. And free Edward Snowden.
I agree.
So it's beautiful that we have populist agreement on the right and the left on those issues. So I'm asking you guys, let's make those a reality. Because right now, a lot of my friends on the left don't believe you. They think, no, they can't possibly be telling the truth, right? No way they're going to cut the Pentagon. No way they're going to have a conflict of interest rule for the generals. No way they're going to do any of this, right? Prove them wrong. Prove them that you are actual populists, that you do mean it, and that we can work together to get those things done.
Cenk, thank you so much. Guys, that was great. Thank you.